Earlier this year, I hiked the Camino de Santiago all the way from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France to Santiago de Compostela on the west side of Spain. Before I embarked on my journey, I had pictures in my head of a stereotypical view of the Camino: wide open plains, churches and cathedrals, and burning hot sun. By day 20, however, I had really only properly experienced the first of these, having just spent the last week on the infamously flat Meseta. And to my surprise, even these expansive landscapes would soon give way to mountains. Stereotypical snow-capped mountains, blanketed in shrubs of wildflowers and scented pine needles. I had no idea that I was just about to encounter my favourite section of the entire Camino, markedly different to any that had come before. And with it, I would also have my most memorable encounters with cathedrals and burning hot sun as well.
Oh my fucking stick.
Walking in Leon on our first morning post-Meseta, we agreed collectively that it was time to right our lack of significant interaction with religion on the Camino by going inside our first major cathedral of the whole trip. Aside from the cathedral at Santiago de Compostela itself, the internet had reassured me that the cathedral at Leon was among the top 2 on the whole Camino, alongside the cathedral at Burgos, so it seemed like a suitable one to visit. Having enjoyed the audio tour aimed at kids, which urged us to search the building for imaginary animals, we set our sights on leaving the city, during what would turn out to be our last rainy morning of the whole Camino.
We finally left the city today. We stayed in Leon last night, which is one of the biggest places we've been. I have to say, probably not my favourite of the big cities we've been to. It was fine, but a lot of boring industrial sections on the way out. And it's 2 p.m. now, and we've only just got into the grassy area out of the city. Outside of Leon, you have to pick between 2 routes. So we're taking the one which is not following the main road for that reason. And today's not going to be a long day, but we've been so slow this morning. In Leon, we bumped into friends that we made in the first week of the Camino that we haven't seen in ages. So we chatted to them for a while, and then we all went into the cathedral.
As the day wore on, the rain gradually turned to sun, though we encountered some more strong wind in the late afternoon. By now, it was well established that Woody was the fastest of us, sometimes speeding off into the distance at a pace I couldn't quite understand walking at, and Niels often followed, leaving me and Lawrence trailing behind. Finally, the 2 of us arrived at the albergue the others had chosen, unaware of just how beautiful the Camino was about to become the next day.
Good morning. It's beautiful and sunny this morning, but it is very, very cold. When we set off, it was actually 0 degrees, so actually freezing temperature. But I kind of like this weather. I think it's some of my favourite that we've had. I like when it's clear and sunny, but not too hot. Today, it's going to be 30 kilometres, so it's a big day, but we've really struggled to get out of bed. I think we're reaching a point of exhaustion. I feel like we're in a dip where we started off the Camino with lots of energy and now we're struggling a bit. But I think that we'll bounce back soon, maybe tomorrow.
That morning, the 4 of us started walking separately, and I observed with amazement mountains appearing in the distance, their tops dusted with sprinklings of white snow. The feeling of being on a big adventure returned, and I walked with a renewed spring in my step, excited by the prospect of having more adventures in the mountains in the future. Eventually, Lawrence, Niels and I reunited in a quirky medieval-looking town, where smiley faces on the ground encouraged us in the right direction, and I discovered I'd lost my cap.
How do I look in this hat? What do you think of my hat? I've lost my hat, my Columbia hat. It's gone. I must have left it in the last albergue. And so Lawrence has lent me this bucket hat that he bought for €2, €2.50 in one of the previous cities, and he has never worn it and does not like it. And you can probably see why. Maybe I'm pulling it off, I don't know. I don't think so, but it's very sunny now, so I wanted to wear something with a cap, with a brim, and I'm very grateful for it. You know, they say that the Camino provides, and in this case the Camino has provided me with just what I needed when I lost my cap. It's a beautiful sunny day. I'm having a wonderful time. I'm very, very happy. The views here are good. Things are good. I'm not in pain. Yeah, this is a high point. This is good.
From here, the day only improved further, as Lawrence and I spent a frivolous afternoon playing with cows and skimming stones.
Hello. I'm so hungry. Do you want a bit of grass?
That didn't work.
One more.
In the final part of the day, we reunited with Woody and Niels, encountering one of the regular food stands provided by kind locals, as well as a very tall tower that Niels climbed and quickly regretted.
Oh boy, that's high. Okay. I was there. Oh, going down. Much scarier than I thought. I don't know.
Is that fun?
Whoa, yeah.
The day finished with some of my favourite views of the entire Camino so far, as we descended towards Astorga. In my Camino diary, I wrote that this had been one of my favourite days of the entire journey.
Can you do it again?
No, I was scared to do it.
Do it. Oh!
Come on.
Wow, well done.
Does that feel good?
Good morning. So, over the next few days, it seems like the weather and the views are going to be getting better and better. It's really nice this morning. It's really warm. And the scenery here is really nice. We can still see snowy mountains ahead of us in the distance. We've just picked up stones because we're climbing a hill where you're supposed to leave a stone at the top. And traditionally you're supposed to bring it from your place of origin, i.e. like your home, and leave it here, but none of us did, so we've just picked up stones on the climb. And the stone is meant to represent something you want to leave behind or forget. So my stone is going to represent the fears and anxiety that I have, and I'm going to leave it on top of this mountain, and then after the Camino I will never see it again. That's how it works. It will be gone.
Oh! More power, more swing.
You need to throw it more that way, not at me.
Whoa!
Wow.
So good.
Yeah!
Whoa.
Wow. Okay. Boss.
Rejoined by Niels, who had stayed back earlier in the morning, the four of us continued on as the day started to heat up. Beautiful pink bushes lined the paths, but I soon began to get left behind as I struggled uphill through the warm air. Having downloaded it the previous day, I tried listening to Book Lovers by Emily Henry to distract myself from the struggle, but found the protagonist so unbearable I deleted it within 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm suffering. It's way too hot for me. My phone says that it's 17 degrees, which is not even hot. But there's no clouds and it's so sunny, and oh god, I'm really struggling. On Friday it's supposed to be 26 degrees. I think I'm going to have to set off at like 4 a.m. Because if I'm walking when it's 26 degrees, I'm going to be so miserable.
Having deleted my audiobook, I decided to walk without music and listen to the sounds of nature, which soon revitalised me, especially as the temperatures gradually dropped and the views continued to improve.
I think this path right here is my favourite place I've been on the Camino. There's like nice flowers here, and then look, mountains and a big open landscape. I love it so much, and the temperature's better now, so I'm very happy.
The path carried us up the hill to Foncebadon, a small village balanced on the hillside and surrounded by the most stunning views. Although we were turned away by albergues without enough space for the first time on the Camino, we soon found somewhere to stay, and feeling exhausted, I couldn't have been more grateful.
Good morning. We're on one of the most beautiful sections of the Camino, and I'm really loving it. The walking yesterday was amazing, and it's so nice this morning. It's so pretty. Yeah, I just feel like every day I feel more and more tired. I mean, it is tiring walking, but I feel happy when I'm walking. It's when it gets to the evening and I have to shower and wash my clothes and socialize with strangers that I feel like I just want to curl up and go to bed. So now I'm out walking and it's so amazing here. Now I'm feeling happier, but yeah, the evenings are becoming really hard for me.
Early that morning, we reached the top of the hill where we would lay down the stones we'd picked up yesterday to represent something we wanted to leave behind. Though I placed mine carefully on the pile of stones already there, the guys elected to throw theirs from a distance. I guess they wanted to be particularly thorough in getting rid of their emotional burdens. I decided to continue walking on my own, to try and relieve some of the feelings of social exhaustion. As well as the mountains and the pink bushes, I also found myself appreciating the pine trees around us, wishing I could live somewhere with similar forests.
I've been walking on my own for about an hour and I feel so good. I feel so happy. This is the first time that I've properly walked on my own since that one day where I was catching up with my friends. And I think I just really needed it. It's really nice just feeling like I'm out for a proper hike on my own and I can just hear birds and yeah, the rustle of leaves and stuff like that.
Little did I know disaster was soon to strike.
So a couple of hours ago I cut my finger really badly, literally just reaching into my bag for something and then not realizing that my razor was there and repeatedly rubbing my finger on the razor. I should have vlogged it really, but at first I was panicked because there was so much blood, there was blood going everywhere, and then when I calmed down and I stopped to ask people for help, and then I felt a bit awkward asking people for help but vlogging at the same time, so unfortunately I did not get much footage, but yeah, it was pretty bad. There was a lot of blood, and then this lovely girl, Gael, stopped to help me and helped me bandage the finger, and she walked me to the next town where my friends were waiting for me, and then I disinfected it and put a plaster on. Now it's kind of throbbing a little bit, and I think the only reason it's not gushing blood still is because the plaster is wrapped around it so tightly. So now I've got a wound to contend with over the next few days on the Camino. It was also a bit annoying because I was sitting there for half an hour trying to get the bleeding to stop, so we wasted a lot of time, and it's now mid-afternoon and it's really hot. It's 25, 26 degrees.
Having survived this deeply traumatizing experience, I had a new gratitude for my friends and the fact that I was not walking the Camino completely alone. We stuck together for the remainder of the day as we arrived into Ponferrada. The next day was hot, very hot.
It's way too hot, but I still feel so lucky to be here. Look how amazing it is.
We walked separately, able to focus on little other than surviving in the heat. The temperature crept towards 30 degrees, marking by far our hottest day on the Camino so far.
Lawrence has finally taken pity on me. I finally get to wear a normal hat instead of that stupid bucket hat. The views are still incredible, but it is so hot. It is way too hot. Like, very unenjoyable level of hot. It's like around 30 degrees. I don't really know what it typically is like on the Camino in summer, but again, must be awful. This is definitely a better time of year to do it, I think.
Practically crawling into the town of Villafranca del Bierzo, I recorded very little footage for the remainder of the day. Unfortunately, tomorrow was looking to be very intimidating. With temperatures similar to the ones we'd experienced, but an enormous climb to contend with for the majority of the day, I was not looking forward to it, and begged the guys to consider starting early with me. We set off just after 5:30 AM, our earliest morning of the whole journey. At first, it felt very much like the middle of the night, a spooky feeling in the air as we walked out of the town by the river. The path soon began to follow what would have been a busy highway in the daytime, but felt disturbingly quiet in the early morning. Despite the darkness, the early start felt good, the cooler temperature refreshing me as we crossed off the kilometres before the sun had even risen. After the sun rose, the Camino began to feel surprisingly busy, several groups of peregrinos passing as we walked on towards the foot of the big hill. Though smaller than the hill we'd climbed on our very first day on the Camino, this was the one day of my journey which truly came the closest to finishing me off. Although we'd walked 20 kilometres before 10 AM, this was not enough to beat climbing in the heat of the day, and it took me another 6.5 hours to complete the remaining 10-kilometre distance. The sweat I experienced was so bad my t-shirt dyed my backpack pink. At times I walked with my friends, and at others I fell back, struggling to maintain even the slowest pace. Eventually, a high point of the day came when we passed into Galicia, our final province of the Camino, having spent 2 weeks now walking through Castile and Leon. Woody amused us with the characters he created to represent the two regions, though I'm not quite sure where these caricatures came from. Finally, we arrived into Cebreiro, a village perched on top of the formidable hill, where we were rewarded with a beautiful sunset over the surrounding countryside.
Good morning. I didn't vlog at all yesterday, which was a shame because yesterday was an interesting day. We set off super early, our earliest day, because we had to do like 30 kilometers and go up a massive hill, and we were expecting it to be around 30 degrees. In the end it only got to 25 degrees, but that was hot enough. That was hot enough to be a struggle. I'm not sure where to go to get the sun out of this. There we go. Yeah, so it was very, very challenging. I had to go up the hill in like 3 different stretches, and on the first one there was a lot of shade, so it was all right. The second one, I honestly thought I might die. It was so hard. But yesterday I was really happy. Even though I think yesterday was the hardest day of the whole Camino, I felt the happiest I've felt in several days. So maybe what I need is a challenge. But I think today is also going to be warm, maybe 24, and there's going to be a lot of downhill, so I think it will actually be easier.
Day 25 was pleasant but uneventful, the mountains we'd seen on previous days giving way to rolling hills and woodland. This was our penultimate day before we'd arrive into Sarria tomorrow, a major milestone which would mark the end of this section of the Camino. Once we reached Sarria, we'd have only 100 kilometres left to Santiago de Compostela, the compulsory distance to receive a Compostela certificate, therefore marking the arrival of many, many more pilgrims on the trail.
Good morning. We officially have less than a week left to go on the Camino, and today is our shortest day of the entire trip. We're only going 18 kilometers. We've just left Triacastela, and from there's 2 routes that take you to Sarria. We're taking the shorter one. Apparently the shorter one is also more beautiful, and it also had a bit of a hill that we've already climbed, so don't worry, just because it's shorter doesn't mean we're slacking off. Today is much more grey than the last few days have been, but I really welcome this change. The sun, it was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it's so hot and sweaty for walking. This is like a lot easier. We've started feeling a bit sad about the impending end of our walk. We see these markers all along the Camino that say how far it is to Santiago, and they're now at about 125 kilometers. And we were saying that when it dips under 100, we're going to get really sad and scared. So just savouring these last few moments before we start to get really close and feel like the end is really approaching.
On our final morning approaching Sarria, I dwelled upon the fact that this last week had been by far my favourite section of the Camino, and how it had blown me away with its beauty, which was so different from the flat plains that I'd pictured before coming to Spain, and experienced on the Meseta the week before. Walking 800 kilometres across a whole country will inevitably bring a variety of surprises and unexpected experiences, and the mountains and hills of the last week had been my favourite.
You want a banana? The sun has come out and I'm just feeling really happy, really grateful to be here. I'm really enjoying the walking today. I feel great. All of the pain in my body is gone. All the stress that I was feeling is gone. And since we're getting close to the end of the Camino, I'm thinking about what walks I want to do in the future. I already feel like I need to do another one. We were talking about doing the Appalachian Trail, which is obviously quite a crazy, ambitious idea. So I don't know if that will happen or not, but there's definitely others. There's the Kungsleden in Sweden. But yeah, if you have any ideas, let me know, because I'm really happy. I want to keep walking. I want to walk every day.
I couldn't quite believe that we were approaching our final 100 kilometres towards Santiago. I knew the Camino was about to change quite significantly. So far, having started our journey in March, the way had been relatively quiet, with fewer pilgrims than at other times of the year. But starting in Sarria, we expected crowds. We didn't quite know what to expect. Would we still be able to find beds each night without booking in advance? Would we meet different kinds of people from here on? One thing I knew for sure is that I wasn't ready for the end of my adventure just yet, and I was going to make the absolute most of our remaining 5 days, whatever surprises they brought us.